Let's dive right into this explainer and uncover these surprising, and I mean really surprising, intellectual inheritance that actually built the modern United States military. When we think about American military might, we usually picture this homegrown evolution, right? Driven by democratic ideals, fierce individualism, massive industrial power, the whole shebang. But actually, the architectural genesis of the U.S. Armed Forces traces back to an entirely different world. Today, we're exploring how the technical, organizational, and doctrinal foundations of American power literally rely on Prussian and German military precedents. Wild, right? So this paradox is our main hook today. How on earth did a democratic, fiercely independent American military build its absolute foundation on the rigid, strict practices of the autocratic Prussian state? It sounds like oil and water, doesn't it? But the magic here lies in how these super rigid European disciplines were perfectly adapted for an egalitarian society. It wasn't just about copy-pasting a dictatorship's rulebook. It was this brilliant synthesis of Germanic organizational efficiency with American individual initiative. To understand exactly where we ended up, we really need to look at the absolute gold standard of modern American military doctrine. It's called mission command. Basically, this concept combines a centralized commander's intent with decentralized execution. In plain terms, leaders tell their empowered subordinates what needs to be achieved, but, and this is crucial, they leave the how completely up to the folks on the ground. We are tracing the lineage of this exact concept today, showing how this beautiful framework of decentralized execution was actually born from the seemingly rigid ranks of Prussian military thinkers. Section 1. Steuben and the Blue Book. So let's flash back to the freezing winter of 1777 at Valley Forge. We're talking about the absolute crucible of the American Revolution here. Now, notice the stark cultural juxtaposition Baron von Steuben faced when he showed up at that freezing encampment. Steuben was a former captain and aide-de-camp to Frederick the Great. He brought the rigorous, uncompromising standards of the Prussian general staff to an American force that was, well, frankly, just a collection of uncoordinated, very stubborn state militias. And he immediately hit a massive cultural wall. You see, the European soldier was trained for blind, rote obedience, but the American soldier? Fiercely independent, fundamentally egalitarian, and absolutely demanding to know the reason why they were being told to do something before they'd even left a finger. But Steuben was brilliant. He recognized right away that to build real American discipline, he couldn't just demand that blind obedience. He had to actually explain the logic to these independent minds. Listen to how Steuben himself captured this in a letter. It's just great. The genius of this nation is not in the least to be compared with that of the Prussians. You say to your soldier, do this, and he doeth it. But I am obliged to say, this is the reason why you ought to do that. And then he does it. That right there, that adaptation, is the exact spark that ignited the American professional ethos. So the crucial point is that Steuben didn't just teach these guys to march. He institutionalized accountability, speed, and survival. And he didn't try to train the whole army at once. That would have been a nightmare. Instead, he selected a 100-man model company to master his drills and then sent them back out to their units to multiply that training. He cranked the march rate up to a rabid 120 paces per minute, which people described as being like a common country dance, allowing troops to deploy with blinding speed. He even standardized camp sanitation, ensuring the trains were downhill from water sources, literally saving thousands of lives from disease. And all of this was codified in his Blue Book, which became the very first official doctrine for the United States Army, a real game changer. Okay, Section 2, Willich, the egalitarian tactician. Let's jump forward to the American Civil War and see how this incredible synthesis builds with a really fascinating figure named August Willich. Talk about historical irony. Willich was a former Prussian lieutenant, yes, but he was also a dedicated communist. He actually fled to England after the European uprisings of 1848 before eventually coming over and fighting for the Union in the American Civil War. Willich managed to merge his Prussian tactical genius with extreme American egalitarianism. Outside of formal duties, he wouldn't call his men private or soldier. He preferred to address them simply as citizen. And just like Steuben, he made sure to explain the specific purpose of every single drill to his men so they truly understood the tactical objective, which made the drills interesting and instructive for everyone involved. And this perfectly illustrates his tactical innovation. Willich developed a drill called advance firing. Picture this. A regiment divides into 4 ranks, with spaces between the men. The front rank fires a massive volley and immediately starts reloading. Then, the second rank swiftly advances 5 paces right through those gaps, fires, and reloads. The third and fourth ranks do the exact same thing, leapfrogging ahead, faster and faster. The result? a devastating, continuously moving wall of lead delivering volleys every 15 seconds. I mean, it completely overwhelmed standard battle lines. No way anyone was standing up to that. Moving on to Section 3, Moltke and Auftrags tactic. As the 19th century progressed, warfare fundamentally shifted. Industrial warfare just grew way too massive, too chaotic, and, honestly, too fast for any single general to control from a hilltop overlooking the battlefield. The Prussian general staff had to evolve once again, this time under a brilliant thinker named Helmuth von Moltke the Elder. Moltke realized that in the absolute chaos of battle, you have to institutionalize independent judgment rather than rote obedience. So he championed a system called Auftragstactic, or mission-type tactics. This is a command philosophy where leaders provide a crystal-clear objective and a commander's intent, but they explicitly leave the specific how of execution to the subordinates who are actually on the ground facing the enemy. It was designed to build a structure that functioned perfectly even without a micromanaging great captain calling every single shot from the rear. Section 4, the modern American way. And this brings us directly to the strategic doctrines that the United States Air Force, and really the entire modern American military, rely on today. This thread, from Steuben to Moltke, weaves right into the Pentagon. As you can see here, these core theories from Prussian masterminds form the explicit intellectual foundation of America's modern way of war. Moltke's Auftrag tactic directly became the U.S. doctrine of mission command. The Clausewitzian concept of Schwerpunkt, or center of gravity, is now the exact basis for our strategic targeting. The Prussian understanding of friction, or the fog of war, well, that's exactly why our military relies so heavily on red teaming and contingency planning today. And the Kriegsakademie, the Prussian professional education system, it's the direct blueprint for institutions like the Air War College. It's a one-to-one translation. So looking at this whole Prussian continuum, it proves that America's unmatched military power doesn't just stem from industrial might. It stems from adapting rigid organization to empower the independent citizen. From Steuben at Valley Forge to the modern Air Force, it's all about fusing efficiency with initiative. It shifts the entire focus of leadership from exhausting micromanagement to centralized intent and decentralized execution. Ultimately, what this shows us is that good structure and doctrine aren't the enemies of freedom. They're absolutely the ultimate enablers of it. I want to thank you for joining me on this explainer today. Keep exploring the history behind the systems we use every single day. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought. Because, hey, this isn't just about military history. It's about leadership. If the most powerful military apparatus in human history relies on Auftragstactic to navigate chaos, how can your business, your team, or your community organization balance centralized strategic intent with fiercely independent, decentralized execution? Something to think about.